Hello, BookTube, I'm Scott.
How funky is your chicken?
How loose is your goose? Why is that our intro now?
I don't know, it's just in my head. Hi, BookTube, I'm Nelle.
We're gunpowder fiction and loose gooses, apparently.
I think we can blame Trixie Mattel. That's probably the answer.
Is that what you've been watching today?
No, I haven't been watching today. I've been coding. I had Rebel Wilson on in the background because she's really easy to ignore. And
I think there's a segment of society that would strongly disagree with that.
Yeah.
This is our Friday Reads video. We're actually going to talk about books. That's the aim. Now, Friday Reads starts with a shout out. That's the thing.
It's your turn. Who are you shouting?
It's my turn. I have picked a channel with less than 50 subs. So that means that most of you have never heard of Rachel's Reading Nook before. Now, Rachel has got a few videos out lately, but one I really like is where she reviews two different Bernardine Evaristo books and contrasts them, and I just think that's wonderful. But she also does this wonderful thing where she combines a single book review with a vlog where she does a book review and she shows you around where she is and she intersperses the two things, and it's just wonderful. And she lives in Switzerland, but her family is from Oregon, and they're both very beautiful and scenic places. So check her out. She's quality and less than 50 subs, in and on the ground level.
For all those ground level BookTube benefits.
Because I tell you what, in
Your
6
investment.
months' time, your ROI will be
Through the roof.
through the roof. Guaranteed to be 1,000 subs by the end of the year. Maybe.
Or your money back.
Or your money back. That's it. Alright. We're going to do something different with today's Friday Read now. We're going to put in a haul, aren't we?
Yeah, because I didn't read. Sorry.
Why are you apologising?
I'm sorry to me.
That's fair enough.
I have had a week. Some man who was supposed to do something technological for money for me did not listen when I said it is not working. And ultimately means I have to do the job myself. So I've been in a code hole for a week.
Work stuff.
Boring.
Yeah.
And horrible. So I bought books.
But you bought these books beforehand because you buy via book mail and they take forever to come.
I know, but these are the books that cheered me up even though I'm not reading them.
So we've been waited a week to do this haul in our Friday Reads because I'm I've got books coming now. I ordered them before you. They'll totally be here the next week. But no, you got more books and I got none. So, and you got a lot to haul. Let's do it. This is Pre-Study by Patricia Lockwood.
Yeah, I don't know why I bought this before I'd read the other one.
No one is talking about this.
Yeah, but I did.
Probably didn't know about that book because no one is talking about.
I knew about it because I live with you. But this sounded really interesting. Her father is a gun-toting, guitar-riffing Catholic priest. Her mother sensed danger everywhere. This is Patricia Lockwood's raucous true story of identity, belonging, fancy chalices, and a profoundly strange return to the family home. Just sounds interesting.
It does. I'd read it.
Earthlings, which you can see I have actually started. Because my husband made me.
Did I make you...
Well... Yes. In the same way I'm going to say that BookTube made me for all of these.
Okay.
Yeah?
It's a good book though, Earthlings.
We'll see. I haven't read it yet.
River Solomon, Sorrowland.
Yeah, because Josh made me.
Because Josh made you. Is this your way of doing a shout out? Yeah, keep going. Who made you buy this book?
I don't remember. This is one of the first books that I put on my wish list when we started watching BookTube. And it sat on my wish list for ages because it wasn't cheap.
Yeah, there's been multiple booktubers that have talked about this book actually.
Yeah, there has. And I actually started a bit of a shopping list of books that I've been avoiding buying because they're not cheap. And I tried to buy them all at once. And then that was a lot. So I took some of them out and put some cheap books in. But there's definitely a couple that are $40 or $50 still on my wish list. So I think I might have to do that again in a few months.
So this is about Asata, the black activist slash extreme black activist.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like she's escaped from jail and all sorts of incredible stuff. New forward by Angela Davis. I mean, like...
It sounds very ACAB.
It just sounds like knowledge I need. It just sounds like things that education systems are probably failing us by not teaching us.
And just show them the back. I just think that colour, there's definitely...
The Huntress by Kate Quinn. This is about ladies who kill Nazis. It's fiction, historical fiction, and it was on a list presented in the middle of the year, so probably on like
one of the mid-year tags.
No, there was like an anniversary of World War II, like an important anniversary this year, and a project I follow called The Mighty Girl, who recommend particularly children's fiction, but fiction centering strong women, released a list about women in World War II, and this was one of the fiction recommendations. So,
yeah, strong woman kills a Nazi. That's just.
I think
awesome.
it's potentially more than one, Nazi and woman. So I'm super interested. Apparently, it's about the Night Witches. So
even if it's bad, it's going to be entertaining. I feel.
This one I got because it's probably my husband's favourite book. If it's not his favourite, it's up there. A Fine Balance by Rohinton Mystery, and I haven't read it yet, and this is the reason I haven't read it.
I wouldn't say it was I would say it was probably my favourite from last year.
Yeah, you talk about it an awful lot.
I think it's the last truly great book I've read.
And it's hard, like, I know he likes The Wasp Factory, but it's really hard to not at least try your partner's favourite. I feel like these are Sean's fault. In fact, let's go through a bit of a selection of Sean's fault.
Yeah, quickly. What's Sean's fault?
China Dream. This is not a book that Sean has recommended, but he did talk about Margrat and another book they wrote. And this one sounded more interesting to me, so I got this one instead. But he did one of those things where I went and looked at the author instead of the book. Which happens.
Well, this one could be Sean or Jen or one of a billion other booktubers.
Sean was talking about it. I don't know if he hauled it or he read it or whatever, but I was like, that sounds really cool. And then I looked it up and now I have it. Ruby Fruit Jungle.
The LGBT classic.
These are all Sean's fault.
5 of them.
And there's another one on the way. So Sean recently hauled...
He hauled them, so he didn't even review it.
He didn't even review it. He recently hauled Bernard and the Cloth Monkey, and he explained what I'm about to explain now. This is a set called Black Britain Writing Back, and it is a selection of out-of-print works by black authors in Britain, selected and forwarded by Bernardine Evaristo.
Not out of print anymore.
Not out of print anymore, but they were. So these are revived by Bernardine Evaristo and Penguin, essentially, have gotten together and made a set of 6 books. They all have incredible covers. I was going to buy a couple of them, and then I read the synopsis of each, and I ended up buying all 6 because they all sound interesting.
Bernard and the Cloth Monkey by Judith Bryan.
And then Minty Alley by C.L.R. James. Incomparable World by S.I. Martin. Without Prejudice by Nicola Williams. Scott's trying to be a gif. The Dancing Face by Mike Phillips. And the last one is called The Fat Lady Sings. And that will be here when it gets here.
No, I don't have enough arms. I will damage your books, and that is not fun.
I just felt like they were the kind of classics that I'm interested in right now. So,
yeah.
They are going into the collection.
All right.
I feel like I'm a bit of a squirrel hoarding nuts for the winter. I think that I'm going to probably have one more big splurge after the booker, and I'm not saying book buying bad, but I'm just throwing the words around a little bit.
conservative book buying outlook that you'll break when it suits you.
Potentially.
Yeah.
These three are all Kat's fault.
Yeah.
If you don't watch Biblio Obscura, then you're behind the eight ball. Kat likes weird fiction, dark fiction, well-written fiction. She does a lot of research into the books that she buys, particularly ones she buys. But she also reads a lot of arcs. She's very good at not giving away too much when she reviews, and that is one of the main... I very frequently listen to her recommendations. So these are ones that I have bought on the basis of rave reviews from Kat. Fragile Remedy.
She also reads a bit of Queerlit.
Yeah, just a smidge. The Map of Salt and Stars. And The Savage Instinct.
And again, do we know what these are about?
Fragile Remedy is about a society, someone who is bred for spare parts.
Ooh.
And they require, in order to stay alive, they require some kind of medication from the lab that created them. And they escape and they have to buy that medicine on the black market. And this is about how they survive after escaping. The Map of Salt and Stars is a dual timeline. One story is a refugee from Syria and their escape route, and the other timeline I think is someone I'm trying to find a year, but I think it's like 200 years ago, traveling the same route but for different reasons, and both young women traveling with their family. And The Savage Instinct is about the last woman hung in Marianne Cotton.
Oh, is this the asylum one?
Yeah, so this is about a woman who goes to an asylum and there's a connection with Marianne Cotton, and it's about I guess probably one of the things that I'm really interested in at the moment is the historical use of asylums to silence women. Anyway, so this is all wrapped up in that, and it's a Victorian historical fiction. And then the one I bought because I read something else by the author and therefore needed to buy it, which is What White People Can Do Next by Emma DeBerry. And if anyone has read, if you have not read Don't Touch My Hair, then read it. And if you have, then you'll understand why I bought this as soon as it was released.
Big capital letters on the back. Stop the denial. Stop the false equivalencies. Interrogate whiteness. Interrogate capitalism. Denounce the white saviour. And abandon guilt. Abandon guilt.
Yeah. So I'm interested to read that because it sounds interesting.
I hold this heavy microphone here because I had an incident with the dog
In the nighttime.
in the nighttime. Might have been in the nighttime, I don't remember when we were shooting, but it was an incident of the dog and the cable attached to the microphone and him not understanding how cables work and panicking and running faster rather than reversing.
What'd you read, Scott?
What did I read? I have 6 books to talk about.
Better get talking!
Better get talking. Something fresh by P.G. Wodehouse. This is the first in the Blandings series. And it follows the storyline of this scarab who was owned by a wealthy American businessman and who was stolen unconsciously by a rich English gentleman when they met to discuss the upcoming nuptials of their children's wedding. Anyway, then more young characters get involved to try and steal the scarab back, and there's romance and a mess, and there's just some lovely lines in this. I really like the lines of, one of the opening lines is, his uncle then proved himself a traitor by dying and leaving all of his money to charity. Which is a very sort of Wodehouse sense of humour going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, just Wodehouse does what he says on the tin. He's funny. I enjoy him.
Yes.
And this was another good book, really.
Mm-hmm.
I finished The Promise by Damon Galgut. Now, you finished this last week, so this is one of my catch-ups.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that this was a really clever and well-written book.
Yes.
I think that this is a potential winner of the Booker Prize, and I can see there's so much going on in here, and I thought that what was really well done is that Galgut is discussing. So wait, let's just go back. If you haven't read, if you don't know about The Promise yet, it discusses this South African family who have a black servant who is promised this house on their land, but because of the laws at the time, she can't inherit the land, and it would be illegal to give her the property. And as time goes by, there's all this tension about giving her the property, and it's used as a like a vessel to discuss South Africa and the racism within South Africa and so on. What I thought was really interesting was that Damon Galgut is a white man, and to discuss racism within South Africa, he has elected to tell it from the point of view of white people. And I am quite skeptical about that as an idea to begin with, but I thought it was done so well. I could really like some of the... I could see how racism was built into these characters, especially Anton, who, you know, you can see how Anton's development really changed throughout this novel, and I thought that was really well done. And there's so much cleverness in this novel, so I thought it was a very good book. Yeah, I think we're going to do a full review of it, so I think that's all I will say. Christina Lamb, Our Bodies, Their Battlefields. So I saw both Heidi from My Reading Life and Courtney Farrader review this, and sorry, I think I said it's Courtney Farrader. I think I got it wrong.
You did, but that's okay.
Anyway.
I forgive you on Courtney's behalf. Yeah.
I don't know what happened to my mouth then.
You just can't talk. It's fine.
Yeah.
Everyone knows.
Okay, so this is a non-fiction book. They both sort of reviewed it with this, like, sort of review, like...
Sounds appropriate from what you said about this book to me in private.
Yeah, this is a book about how rape is used as a weapon of war, and it details the woman's account of these horrific things. The book sort of builds, like, it starts with what is probably the least horrific of all the horrific things that are happening, and discusses the Taliban's treatment of the Yazidis, which is horrible, right? And like the trading that these men do of these women, which is, I thought it was really interesting to like think about that as a mechanism, because these men would buy these women for these quite large sums, but then they would sell them, and it got me thinking that there would be men out there who would have made a fortune buying and selling Yazidi women, you know, buying them cheap and selling them expensive.
I mean, what?
And that sort of market then perpetuates this sort of rape and slavery.
Okay. I'm glad you caught up.
Well, I was... I mean, I understand how men make money through the pimping of it, but of women, and how men treat women like animals, but the treating of women like a stock is just something interestingly new for me. Like, I would never consider women my apples that I'm selling. I mean, not even apples, the property that I am buying to rent out, and I don't know. When this got to Rwanda, I was like, oh wow, this is just
a horror show. This
is horror show. And then it did a few other things, and I, you know, to be honest, once Rwanda hit, I was in a state of shock, and then Congo hit, and I just could not fathom what was going on. the use of petrol as a rape vessel is the most absurdly cruel thing that I have heard of. And the idea, like, Congo is a very rich country, not that it's not actually, but in that it has a lot of gold and a lot of cobalt, and a lot of the materials and the minerals are used in like them.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of mining companies making money out of the Congo, and there's this link between the mines and rape used to terrify the local population. And it's just, it's appalling. And, you know, I think what's really interesting, it's this whole book discusses women. And then at the end, she goes, now we're going to discuss men. And, you know, I mean, obviously, to say that rape is a woman's issue is to completely neglect the fact that somebody commits the crime.
Yeah.
But it also points out that men are the victim of rape in these crimes as well. So what I want to say, like, is to, like, men need to be aware of, like, they should not ignore this.
No, it's definitely a book that needs to be in the hands of men, male readers.
Yeah, and I suspect that men will find it more confronting and shocking than women because, I mean, the reality of...
Yeah, I think that it's a two-edged sword reading this kind of material as a woman who knows other women. You know a rape victim. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, as a man, you know a rape victim. You're just less likely to know who it is. But as a woman, like, we share these stories and we talk about these things, and so you're not as shocked by, like, sexual violence existing and being prevalent, and the ways in which men use it to wield power. You're not as shocked. But I do think that reading about these experiences is a more visceral thing, because you can imagine being in that person's body a bit more.
Yeah.
So I think it's both more and less confronting.
Yeah. I would also, like, there are themes that are in Chanel Miller, Know My Name, that come up towards the end of this, just the inability to empathise with the victims in the justice system, and
the failure of the world to, like, stop this shit from happening.
And just so many, like, people who have, like, committed murder and genocide and, like, stuff, and then they go to these war crimes and they're charged with murder and genocide and rape, and they get off the rape, but they get convicted of murder and genocide, and then everybody...
But it's totally fine that you put your penis in those women without their consent.
Well, see, nobody has actually been charged and found guilty of rape. They're being charged and found guilty of making other, like, inciting rape.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, but it's just... Yeah, it's so confronting. Look, this is, I think, by far the most confronting book I've ever read, like, easily. And I like to read confronting, miserable books, like...
Yeah, but I think it's a bit different when it's factual.
But you can make stuff up. This is worse than American Psycho.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's just... And, yeah. So, like, obviously this comes with trigger warnings, just, like... I think this is quite obvious to avoid if you don't, like, yeah.
If you need to avoid it, avoid it.
Yeah. It doesn't pull its punches, and it hits harder than you think it will hit.
Yeah.
And, you know, I thought I can deal with that sort of stuff, and I didn't expect to be, like, thrown off quite as much as I was by just the wow. We read together Two Scorched Men by Margrat Atwood, which is a new short story, script exclusive thing that was advertised to me. And that was, you know how Margrat Atwood does different... I feel like every Margrat Atwood book is a different genre.
Yeah, I feel like she writes experiments.
Yeah.
And some of them become something and some of them don't.
This was a bit of an absurdist sort of genre. She referenced Samuel Beckett and Albert Camus in it, and I feel like those characters maybe even they maybe even exist as characters in this novel is what I would say. But it was short, and it was a little bit weird, and I must say I probably don't understand a lot of it.
I enjoyed it. I like the way she draws characters. It's one of my favourite things about how she works. And I think that this was a very good example of that. It was super short, so it didn't really go anywhere. Kind of. Except it kind of did. I don't know. What I thought was interesting is these little grab books that we're starting to get that are that are often like they become an advertisement or a prequel to a full-length novel that is...
Oh, you think she's going to write something like this?
I don't know, but I think with audio books and these sort of short, super short fiction that they're releasing on audiobook, it does allow authors to sort of test an audience with an idea in a way that would have been very expensive to do before.
They get much quicker feedback to these days, don't they?
Yeah, especially I think with an audiobook the way that this is.
Yeah.
It's been released as an exclusive. Anyone who's a Margrat Atwood fan and has Scribd is probably going to listen to it. They allow you to star rate in the app, but you know, I'm sure they watch Goodreads as well. I feel like it tests the waters for... It's a little bit like, almost like a market research tool.
It
sort of made me realise how much the market for books is changing.
But authors have always written novellas, so it's just a new way of using them.
Yes. And a couple of things I've read a P. Jelly Clark and a K. Jemison that are that sort of fiction, and then come across the full-length novel afterwards.
I think that P. Jelly Clark was definitely advertising for his...
and the one by N.K. Jemison that I read was very similar. Like it was like a prequel short story that set the scene for a novel that I've now seen advertised. So I feel like...
Yeah, it's the same characters.
Yeah, like the ability to use these as like a taster almost and refine your audience for your full-length novels. Like, I think that's kind of cool.
Get a bit of hype going about them. I think it's an excellent marketing tactic. Whether it's good for writing or not, I don't know. But as far as for book sales for that particular book, it's definitely a good tactic.
Yeah.
The Deviants War, the homosexuals versus the United States.
Sorry.
This was an autobiography of a man called Frank Kavanagh, who was basically a gay activist. He got fired from a job with the government as an astronomer because he was gay, and he fought that. And you know, the sort of the questions he was asked were at the time were quite horrible and quite invasive, and you know, questions that nobody would want asked regardless of their sexuality at the time. And what actually happened to him was that he went to one of the bathrooms, the public restrooms that they had, and he had a man touch his penis, and he pushed the man's hand off after a short delay, right? Now what was probably sort of going on was he was sort of coming to terms with that's definitely how it's portrayed. But he got arrested for that, and he was like, I didn't do anything. Like, you know, but that sort of forced him to come to terms with his sexuality. But anyway, it goes through his, you know, fight, and, you know, he basically, for a man who could have been working on the moon mission if he was straight or closeted, he ended up being, you know, very poor and becoming a gay activist. And I think it's really interesting how something so, I mean, whether you're gay or straight, does it really matter?
Yeah.
But it has such a huge effect on your life and on his life. Like, you know, you can imagine that he would be Neil Armstrong or Buzz Aldrin, but now he's a revolutionary gay activist. It's such a different life. I think that's really fascinating. What I didn't like about this book, though, was there was endless amounts of detail about bills and laws and transcripts from courtrooms, and it just, like, there was details in this that really, I think, could have been cut down to, and they blocked the bill.
Right.
You know, they badgered the witness, and it would have flowed a lot better and a lot nicer. I think that Eric Cervini, who wrote the book, I think that he did all this research and he wanted to put it all in there, and that you know, the skill is about what you shouldn't put in there, or how you should summarize stuff to make it.
I guess, but I also think that, like, sometimes these books aren't being written for our entertainment. Sometimes they're being written to preserve the history.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how he got hold of the. I mean, they sound like they're court transcripts he's gotten hold of.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a valuable thing to gather them all up and put them in one place, and
yes,
you know.
Yes. Also, something just really weird that put me off was that when I went to rate this book in Goodreads, and I said the other week I had the same thing happen. He has rated his own book, and when that happened the other week, when it was Melissa Broder for Breastfed,
Yeah.
I thought that was fine because Breastfed was essentially, I wouldn't call it a comedy, but it was a humorous novel.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas this is not a humorous non-fiction.
So you felt like it was inappropriate?
I felt like it was sort of, yeah, I mean, maybe you can joke on, I mean, maybe I'm just being too silly about it, but I felt like that was the wrong tone to advertise with, like, you know, maybe I'm just being silly there.
Sounds a bit hypercritical to me.
Yeah, I think it is hypercritical, but I think if you like endless details, then it's a good one, but it really...
How many pages was it?
494.
494 pages of endless details.
Yeah, and endless details, and something as important as the Stonewall riots was covered in a flash.
Yeah.
So, yeah. The last one I finished today was The End of Men by Christina Sween-Baird. This is a story about a plague, a pandemic, that essentially wipes out 90% of all men. It's highly contagious, and 90% of men die from it, and 0% of women die from it. As a premise for a novel,
sounds hilarious.
I love this.
Yeah.
And I was enjoying it to begin with, but there were just so many times when I just said, that's just not right. Either. So the example that I want to pick, because I think that this is the worst example of not researching or thinking about what you've written, was in this novel, China breaks up. Communism fails in China because of a famine. Right? And I'm just like, really?
Is that what happens?
Is that, like...
No.
Have we not had a famine in China before? Like...
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
I'm just, yeah, it really... That really frustrated me,
Okay.
That. But there were just so many examples where the science was wrong, something else was wrong.
It was just too unrealistic for you.
Yeah, and the thing is with all of these things, they didn't even need to be in the book. You want China to break up, just have China break up.
Yeah,
just,
you don't have to
just
say...
have it.
Yeah.
There's a plague, just say it's a consequence. Don't say something unrealistic. And the same with the science. If you want this virus to do something in a certain way, don't say that it's attached to the X chromosome and women are immune to it because they have two X chromosomes. Because, for an example, baldness is carried on the X chromosome, and men get bald more than women because they only have one X chromosome, but women can still go bald.
Yeah.
They just need to have two chromosomes. That
I think the source of female baldness tends to be different. But, yes.
But it is possible to have two defective X chromosomes and for women to go bald.
Yes, also viruses attached to chromosomes sounds like bad science to me.
Yeah, there was just a lot that was bad, and either do the research or don't science it.
Yeah.
And what that did was when the discussion was going on, so there was a great discussion at the end when the population had changed from 50% men to 5% men, and the men were talking about how women are always giving them their number and harassing them and trying to go on dates and being quite problematic some of the time, and like the wolf whistle culture in reverse.
Is it a dude who wrote it?
No, it's a woman. But it was wolf whistle culture, but backwards. And I thought, okay, that's funny, but I just could not, like, the research that was done beforehand just meant that conversation was so meh.
Yeah.
Like, I could not believe that was the way it would work. Yeah. Well, that's all the books I've read. So we're currently reading Hamnet with Olivia from Olivia's Catastrophe, and that's a lovely book.
I don't know what I'm currently reading because I'm in a code hole, but I'm going to get out of the hole. I'm going to dig my way out of the code hole, and then I'll be back next week, I hope.
You'll be back next week. And I've also started Silver Sparrow by Tahiri Jones.
Mm-hmm. Are you done? Can I play with the microphone now?
Yeah, what do you want to do with it?
I just want to see what happens when I go with this. What does this do?
Well, that changes the direction.
I know. I want to hear what it sounds like, you stupid bellend. It's got a weird little symbol. I want to know what the symbol sounds like.
It's the infinity. It means it signals from everywhere.
What about the infinity on its side? Does that mean I have to be doing cartwheels for it to take sounds from everywhere? And no.
Okay.
You're a butthole. Butt-shaped one? Like this? Does that mean butthole?
No, the butt-shaped one is the one that we want because it ignores the thing behind us. So that means when the dog's snoring like he's been doing this entire filming, it shouldn't be caught on the microphone.
Okay, I've had my play now.
Okay. Well, that is all. Look, make sure you check out Rachel, who we shouted out at the start of this, and let us know if you agree with any of my opinions on the books or if you've read any of the books Nell's hauled.
Don't tell us if you agree with Scott.
Tell me if you disagree. Only if you disagree.
I don't want to hear from people who agree with you.
It's really reducing the number of comments we'll get.
By what? One madman? I love you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.